What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for October 2nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy hump day to everyone out there. Let's start off with some housekeeping. First, if you hear that loud humming in the background, I think it's almost time for a new laptop. It's making some weird noises, so I don't know. But be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best place to get all of our content. That's at Jimbo_Mont. And then spread the word. Like I've been saying, if you're enjoying this, probably somebody else will too. So spread the word and let's help grow this thing. If you need information about the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, all of that's in the description, including ticket information as well as the inductees. Later this month, we're going to start our Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee class spotlighting all of the inductees for this year's class. We've been doing our Red October Best Phillies postseason games. We're going to continue that until we get into the Sixers preview. And looking forward to this Sixers season. They are in training camp right now down in the Bahamas. And I guess they were all wearing sweatshirts that says the ball wins yesterday. And that's they were asking Nick Nurse about it. It's basically the mindset they're going in, taking care of the ball, creating turnovers on defense, and that's really like his style. So I'm really looking forward to his second year now that he's been in. He's able to establish his system, and they certainly have the roster. And like I've been saying, I know how this is going to end. I'm sure this is the Lucy with the football moment. But for right now, I'm Charlie Brown, gearing up, getting ready to kick that ball, and nothing's going to change that until probably like February or March when that ball gets pulled away. But looking forward to it. But the ball wins. They all seem to be buying into it, and I love it. It's all about taking care of the ball, creating turnovers on defense, and they just, even going back to media day, watching some of the interviews with all these guys, they just all seem dialed in and focused. And again, I'm sure I'm getting sucked into it, but for some reason, this one feels different than the past. And maybe it's all the Ben Simmons videos I've been watching. I don't know. But Sixers training camp as they get underway soon. All right, let's start now with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, we're trying to keep the new Philly mentality. Can this Eagles team make the playoffs, or will this team, I guess is what I asked. 58% of you say yes, they will. I was very split. I was back and forth all day, and I certainly think they can. I think the question of will is a different story. I need to see what they look like coming out of the bye. And since we're in the bye and we don't have anything, just wanted to take a look at some of the things that through the first four games. And I mean, the biggest thing that stands out to me, obviously you can make a case for the defense, and maybe we'll get into that tomorrow, but the offense and Kellen Moore. And I don't know if it's Jalen not being able to run it, Nick interfering too much, Kellen it taking some time for him to get into his set, or what it is. But I don't think the offense looks good. They showed glimpses, and I guess against the Saints, they were moving the ball, but then Jalen turned the ball over. They were okay at times against Green Bay. Terrible last week against Tampa Bay. And what was the other game now? Atlanta, Green Bay, Tampa, and the Saints. So in Atlanta, they kind of just looked stale, and I think Jalen was missing some throws, and it looks worse than it did last year. So, I mean, it begs the question, is it Nick? Is it Jalen? Somebody needs to be to blame for that. Is it Kellen? Did they make the wrong decision? And I mentioned the defense, and I don't even know where to begin with that. I mean, could it be Howie, the players, whatever it is? But that leads us to I'll get it out. That leads us to today's question of the day. And which coordinator has been more disappointing this year, Kellen Moore or Vic Fangio? You could go either way with this. I think with where we are 4 weeks into the bye, I have to go with Kellen Moore because I expected there to be growing pains on the defense. And if you go back to the Eagles preview I did, this is sort of what I kind of expected out of the defense, up and down. I expected to see more things that inspire confidence, but this is about where I expected. The offense has been underwhelming, and I mean, it's easy to blame the injuries, and I feel like I don't want to get into this because I still keep getting feedback about the people that are pro Jalen. I just don't get it. I don't get why we make excuses for him and, oh, well, the injuries. And it's nobody made excuses for Donovan McNabb. Nobody makes excuses for Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. You know what they do? They go out there and play. They make their teammates better. And I don't see that from Jalen. And could it be Kellen Moore? Maybe. Could it be Nick Sirianni? Maybe. But a lot of that has to fall on Jalen. Everybody talks about his work ethic and how he's a hard worker. Get to work, dude. Like, I don't know what to say other than I don't think he's as good as we all think he is. But which coordinator's been more disappointing? Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore? Let me know your thoughts on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest? Want to talk Phil's playoffs, Flyers preseason, Sixers training camp? All of that is on the table. 267-495-8531. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Should be 2 great episodes this week, both the baseball and the football, especially if the Mets can continue and win out the wild card round tonight over the Brewers. Should be a lot of fun watching Lewis and Mike go after each other. But check them out. That's available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then go to Philly Goat. I've been telling you, get ready for Red October. The shirt came in yesterday. Here it is. If you haven't seen it, the election with the elephant, donkey, and who I'm voting for, the Philly Fanatic. Go. That is available on phillygoat.com. They have all of your Red October needs covered. The fans are back. Like, that to me is the greatest thing I've seen on their website recently. The fans are back. You got to get the Fanatic shoes. They have the Schmidt Happens, the Go Phils with all the different Phils. Just go. Check them out. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. And I also want to take a moment to say congratulations to Nicholas Johnson. I was waiting on the shirt to come, getting in contact with him. Nicholas Johnson from Wisconsin. We're in Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen, for winning our 2nd anniversary free Philly Goat t-shirt. That was mailed out yesterday. So, Nicholas, thank you. And be sure to spread the word out in the land of cheeseheads about this day in Philly sports history. But that shirt should be coming to you by Friday, according to the United States Postal Service. All right. Phillies have their full squad scrimmage today. They're going to have umpires pumping crowd noise. They even said they were going to put some bets on the game. I don't know if with the recent events with Pete Rose, if that's very appropriate right now. But hey, I guess a little friendly wagering never hurt anyone. I wish that game was on TV. I totally would love to watch it. So if anybody's in the media is going down and is going to live stream that, shoot out the link because I would love to see them. And as they stay fresh and stay sharp, getting ready for Saturday's NLDS matchup against either the Mets or the Brewers. Times have been announced for both games this weekend. Both games are going to be at 4. I like that. It would have been nice to have the prime time, but I guess with the Dodgers, they had to put them down at the later slot. But it's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. Good enough to get down there, tailgate, have some fun, and let's get ready for either the Mets or the Brewers. Personally, I'd rather it be the Brewers, but listen, I think it doesn't matter at this point. That team should be locked in, and I mean, they're going to have to beat these teams anyway, so bring on the Mets. Let's go. The Mets did win yesterday 8-4. Rhys Hoskins did not have a good game for the Brewers. They looked to bounce back, and then the Padres shut out the Braves 4-0. And to be honest, I don't want to play the Mets. If I had my choice, I'd rather play the Brewers, but I think a team to be on the lookout for is San Diego. I think they match up well against the Dodgers, so it could be a rematch of the 2022 NLCS should the things go the way they should. But we'll have more on the Phils. Maybe we'll know who they play tomorrow. Maybe not, but later in the week we'll do a little playoff preview as we gear up for Red October. And also, I wanted to mention, I saw a lot of this on Twitter yesterday, and I didn't even think about it. Pete Rose had a lifetime ban from baseball. Now that he's dead, I guess technically he would be eligible for the Hall of Fame. I'm not really sure how that works because I know the closest thing would be Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was involved in the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And he still is not, I think he's still on the ban list and not able to get in the Hall of Fame. But Pete Rose, I remember specifically, I was very into this when it was happening back in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a lifetime ban. Now that his lifetime is over, is the ban lifted? And does that mean numbers can be retired and he can get into the Hall of Fame? If you know anything about that, let me know. Because I started thinking about it. I'm like, a lot of people on Twitter pointed that out, that it was a lifetime ban. It's kind of like you get life in prison and then you die. You're not technically in prison anymore. So I don't know. It's one of those, probably a semantics type thing. But if you have any information on that, let me know. Flyers fell in preseason action last night 4-1. Some positives, some negatives. They're a young team. They're going to show some growing pains. They're not playing full strength right now. They're resting guys and whatnot. But they have one more preseason game tomorrow before they open up the season next Friday in New Jersey. Looking forward to that. Mishkov Mania is going to be running wild. Union look to continue their playoff push tonight down in Orlando. And this is a huge game for them because they are currently in a three-way tie for the wild card. And Orlando City is a top 4 team who's also battling for playoff position. And these are teams, if you make the playoffs, you're going to have to play anyway. So I'm looking forward to keeping an eye on that game and seeing how the Union do tonight. I mentioned the Sixers. I love it. And I cannot wait until Lucy pulls the football out on me. But for right now, I'm Charlie Brown. And if you've ever watched a Peanuts cartoon, you know where I am right now. I'm backing up and gearing up, running in plays, getting ready to kick the football. Hopefully, Lucy does not pick it up this time. But we all know she does every time. Okay, today we're going to go back to 1943. And due to player shortages due to World War II, the Eagles and the Steelers were forced to combine teams for the 1943 season. The teams were made up pretty much of guys who were deferred in the draft or were not deemed medically cleared to serve in the military. So rather than the teams folding, since they were in Pennsylvania, they decided to merge together. And on this day, 1943, the Phil Pitt combined team, or the Steagles as they were unofficially known as, and we all know them as, played their first game together and won 17-0 over the Brooklyn Dodgers down at Shibe Park. This was a difficult season for the Steagles, and difficult because you had two very strong-willed owners, coaches, and even the players for that matter, and they split their practice time between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. They split their home games between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and it made it even harder because those guys that were not deemed eligible to serve in the war still had to work in wartime jobs, so it made it very, very difficult to get practices in. And then you throw in the fact that the coaches were fighting. Greasy Neal for the Eagles and Walt Kisling for the Steelers. They hated each other. They were named co-coaches by Art Rooney and Bert Bell, the respective owners of the teams. They worked it out where one person would coach the defense, one person would coach the offense. But they hated each other and just fought all the time, which made getting practices and all of that together. But despite all of that, they were able to go 5-4-1 and finish third in the NFL Eastern Division. And it was the first winning season in franchise history for the Eagles and only the second for Pittsburgh. So despite all of that, the Steagles actually had a winning record, finished third place in the NFL Eastern Division. The following year, the Eagles went back to normal. They had enough players for the 1944 season as they were gearing up to go on a run where they would make the NFL championship 3 straight years from 47 to 49. Meanwhile, the Steelers were still struggling, so they decided to combine with the Chicago Cardinals. A lot of people called them the Carpets because everybody walked all over them because they were terrible. But on this day in 1943, the Steagles played their first game, a 17-0 win over the Brooklyn Dodgers. That was due to player shortages because of World War II that the Eagles and Steelers merged teams for 1 year. They did have a winning record, first winning record in Eagles history. And I know a lot of my Steelers friends are always like, it took us to help you have a winning team. And really, the Steelers team was horrible back then compared to the Eagles. So the only reason that was a winning season was because of the Eagles players. We went on to win a championship in a couple of years. And don't even talk about the 70s. We're talking about the 40s right now. But that all happened on this day back in 1943. All right. Time for our Red October great games in Philly sports history. And I had no idea when I had already had these games scheduled out, and I had no idea, but this one is perfect due to the current events and the passing of Pete Rose. But we're going to go back to Game 4 of the 1980 NLCS. And to be honest, I could have picked any of the 5 games in that NLCS to kind of focus on. I could have picked all 5 of them. Instead, I've only picked 2, but we're going to focus on Game 4 today. The Phillies won Game 1 3-1, probably the worst game of the entire series. The Astros won the next 2, both in extra innings, so it put the Phillies in a do-or-die situation down in the Astrodome. And the way it was set up back then, the Phillies got the first 2 games at home. The Astros had the next 3 down in Houston, but they sent Steve Carlton, their ace and the Cy Young Award winner, to the mound, and it was a pitcher's duel for the first 3 innings. But then in the top of the 4th, Bake McBride and Manny Trio both hit back-to-back singles, and it looked like a Phillies rally was starting. Gary Maddox stepped up, hit a low liner back up the middle, and it looked like, depending on your vantage point, the pitcher caught it or he trapped it. Either way, the video replays were inconclusive. Not that they could have used them back then anyway. So the umpire ruled that he caught it, or the home plate umpire could not tell. So he went to the first base umpire, who ruled that he caught it. And ultimately, they ended up doubling Trio off of second. And during the argument and the frustration, McBride was also tagged out, so it was a triple play, or so we thought. The home plate umpire did the right thing and said, listen, because of my hesitation and the confusion, Bake McBride would have gone back to second base or and been safe. So let's or first base, I guess it would have been. But no, I guess it would have been second base. But he was like, due to the hesitation and everything, let's put him on second. So through all that, the Phillies were out protesting that he trapped it and wasn't a catch and it should have been bases loaded. After this, the Astros came out, and there was about 20 minutes or so of protests. The National League president was in the stands. He upheld the umpire's decision, but both teams played the game under protest. Ultimately, the protest was overruled. So the Phillies did not get a run. The Astros did lead it 2-0 then, going into the top of the 8th. And then the Phillies scored 3 runs to take a 3-2 lead heading into the bottom of the 8th. They held serve. And then Warren Brewster came on to save the game in the 9th inning, blew the save. And then we had our 3rd straight extra inning NLCS game. If I know, just hearing from my dad and uncles and my grandparents, this was like a cardiac type Phillies team. You can never count them out. They always made it difficult. And this NLCS was no different. They had it won, blew the save, sent it into extra innings again. Top of the 10th, Pete Rose singled with 1 out, and then Greg Luzinski doubled him home. Pete Rose, of course, did Pete Rose things, ran over catcher Bruce Bochy. You might recognize that name, and that gave the Phillies the lead. Manny Trio then doubled in Greg Luzinski to give the Phillies a 5-3 lead. Tug McGraw came in and got a 1-2-3 10th inning. Phils even the series, setting up a winner-take-all matchup for Game 5 the next day. A little side note on this that I thought was interesting. Houston and Texas A&M were scheduled to play at 7 that night, and they didn't. I guess the game was scheduled before they realized the Astros would be in the NLCS. It took a few hours to transfer the field over from baseball to football. They wanted to keep it on the schedule because it was Friday night, so they waited. And because this game went longer, and actually I think the game was a Saturday night game. Sorry about that. But because the game took longer and it took 3 hours or so to change over the field, the game did not kick off until 11:30. So just an interesting side note of what happens when you have two teams playing in the same stadium. But Game 4 of the NLCS, Phils win 5-3 in 10 innings. It was the third straight extra inning games, tied up the series at 2 games apiece, setting up the winner-take-all matchup for Game 5, which something tells me we'll be reliving that game later on down the road. But that was our Red October Great Phillies postseason game of the day. Pete Rose doing Pete Rose things in honor of his passing, and he just played hard no matter what. Didn't matter who it was. Ran over Bruce Bochy. So like I said, you all recognize that name. Maybe we'll be seeing old Bruce here in a few weeks. But Game 4 of the 1980 NLCS, Phils beat the Astros 5-3 to even things up at 2 games apiece. On this day in 1943, the Steagles played their first game, a 17-0 win over the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Steelers and Eagles were forced to combine due to player shortages due to World War II. Eagles' first winning season in franchise history. Only the Steelers second, so don't let those Steelers guys tell you, oh, it was because of us. They weren't much better either. We'll have more on the Phillies as they gear up for the NLDS tomorrow. More on the Eagles bye week, but the question of the day, which coordinator has been more disappointing this year, Vic Fangio or Kellen Moore? 267-495-8531. That's a Back to the Future voice and text line. Get your thoughts heard. Get that, anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Want to talk Pete Rose, 1980 NLCS, Phillies NLDS coming up, Sixers, Flyers, Union, whatever you want, it's fair game. Hopefully the Union take a one step closer to clinching a playoff spot. Sixers down in Bahamas. I'm telling you, it's going to be a good season for the Phils, I believe. And might as well go get a Believe shirt from Philly Goat because it can be a duel. You can wear it for the Sixers. You can wear it for the Phillies. Maybe you believe in the Eagles. You can wear it for them too. Whatever. All right. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for October 2nd, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.